Reporting. This is Sweetwater 2's 2018 facility plan meeting with the State Construction Department, specifically the School Facilities Division, and we'll introduce ourselves first.
Amber Leach.
Troy Decker, Planning.
Lance Johnson, Project Manager, School Facilities.
Charlie Kaufman, Planning.
Donna Little, Como, Superintendent, Sweetwater 2.
Doug Hamill, Maintenance Supervisor, Sweetwater 2.
Okay, well, good morning. Thank you for joining us. I don't think Paul's going to join us, so I'll remove him. I think we have everybody else. And Brandon is not going to be able to join us. So 4 of us with you guys. So welcome. One of the things I think we've improved on the last several years is just there's a lot of stuff that we share with WDE and they share with us, and so our data is really important. And Amber's job is to help solidify all that data on the front end before the meeting. And so we're going to go down through this. You don't have to comment on each piece. I'll just acknowledge that you guys have double checked and that everything's accurate. So we did this year. We just decided, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago, I decided it'd be kind of cool just to put Google Earth images of your different sites on. So we have done that, and it sounded like someone else may have joined us. I guess not.
Looks like you did that during the summer, Troy.
Yeah, well, it's whatever historic Google Earth image is up there. That's right. You guys don't have this kind of green grass and deciduous trees in the winter. That's what's going on there. Maybe Google Earth specifically does that so that it looks better and you want to look at it. I'm not sure. So tracks and gains. Acreage is really important because it affects your block grant. This information goes from us to WDE and affects your groundskeeper. So I think this is a really important part of the formula for you guys getting what you deserve. So thank you for double checking that. Charlie's done just a great job as we've refined this, and he's gone to the GIS sites and stuff like that. So I think they're as accurate as can be. But thank you for doing that. You did talk about the fact there's no more central administration office in the Lincoln Middle School. It has moved across to Wilson to the north, and I was just looking at just a few minutes ago, actually. And here we go.
Up here.
So you guys have moved over to that Wilson, and man, that's such a nice building. I think you guys did just a fantastic job. So that's just a confirmation of your note. Don't need to say much more on that. We do have that in there though, right, Charlie? We got the Wilson up right there, administration building tracked. Good. Next one, property profiles. Our data, specifically addresses, stuff like that, are really important. Those go over to WDE. We get ADM from them on a yearly basis, and then usually late December, sometimes into January, and that ADM is put in our square foot calculator and drives out an allowable square footage. So gross square footage is important, allowable square footage is important, and what it means is accurate major maintenance payments. So we want to make sure those are correct for you guys. We're going to be talking about that a little bit more soon here. Charlie may address that as well if his voice endures. So it looks like we do have some changes in the AIM update form, status property that requires commission acknowledgement, and then some minor physical alterations. So I think those are all that we need to talk about here in just a moment. With regard to leases, thank you for keeping us up to date on those, because those can, if someone's leasing out a school district building and it's a qualifying program in some way, shape, or form, you guys do get major maintenance for that square footage. Otherwise, you don't. It's part of your lease, and you get money from them to take care of that portion. Enhancements, I think we've gone through them. So let's stop right here. And again, you guys are just telling us that your administration building has moved over. It looks like you guys are going to have some configuration changes here probably by next fall. So that's, I don't know if if you guys have that approved already, or do you have to submit that in the summer when the change occurs?
It's already already been approved by both WDE and Dale.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, we have our letters and everything.
Okay, super. So back up to these things. You guys have an AIM update form submitted to SFD changes. What was that?
Yeah, that was, Amber, remember you told me to fill those out for both Lincoln and Wilson?
Right, for the swap.
Oh,
going-
Yep.
Lincoln is,
So Lincoln was gonna have a 6, 7, and 8 configuration next year, and the old building across the street became the central administrative building.
yeah, okay. Okay, that sounds good. And then I know that's ran through the commission as well. And then you said you do have some minor physical alterations that require floor plan updates. Describe those for us.
Okay, but Troy, run that by me again. I would.
He was laughing because I opened my soda and I said, I hope they don't think it's a beer. Yeah.
Well, we won't comment on that one. So minor physical alterations. Talk to us about your minor physical alterations.
So at central office, there was really no physical alterations to this building, but at Lincoln, that was that wing that used to be the central administrative wing over there. Now it's going to be the 6th grade wing. We actually did a lot of physical alterations to that part of the building.
Yep, gotcha. So Charlie, I know you're kind of coming in and out. Are you still there?
I am back again.
Okay, thank you. We do have some physical alterations in Lincoln Middle School.
Yep.
Charlie, remind me, we're going to have that, are we going to have that one remeasured and reassessed once that project's done?
Troy, that project is done.
So this fall, we're looking at FEA go back out. That school is on the list. We noted that at the beginning of the assessment stuff. So that one will be assessed and remeasured.
And just so you know too, that the admin building did have some minor changes done as well, where the new entry is and also rooms divided. And if you want an accurate floor plan of that, they'd have to go in and do that one as well.
That is true. There was some.
Charlie, you back with us? So, Charlie, how about Wilson, the old Wilson Elementary School, now is the administration office? Do we have that slated for remeasuring and reassessment?
We did have that one reassessed last fall.
Okay, so it's done.
Right.
Yeah, they came in. I remember
Okay.
when they came in to do that.
Got it. All right, so in the fall then, guys, and what we're trying to do obviously is mobilize at one time and capture all the change schools in the state. So in the fall, we'll come out and remeasure Lincoln and also set the baseline for the systems, the new systems and stuff like that in there.
Okay.
Okay, super. Let's see what else you had listed here. I think that pretty well covers everything. All right, so on appropriations here, let's walk down through these and make sure we have them. And Charlie, we'll just go one at a time right down. So 1149, I know you guys didn't list this one up here. So here's your notes, we appreciated that. And then down here, I just wanted to confirm that we're doing what we need to do and you know exactly what action. So obviously this one's already been closed out, 1149. I just said complete, no funds remaining. So that one's good. Your 1150, which is the old Wilson renovation edition, it looks like that's complete and no funds are, why did I say that? No funds, 1150, no funds remaining. It does look like there are funds remaining, aren't there?
Well, There is, Troy, because we still have the 11-month walkthrough on that, and there's some design funds in that.
Okay, so is it still under then the warranty period?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, say that again.
It's under warranty right now? Warranty period?
Yes. We can't close that one out. And really the remaining funds that are left are, like I said, some design for post-construction and also some owner's overhead. Not
Okay.
a lot.
And those should revert to Lincoln.
And those will just revert back to Lincoln when that's done anyway. None of that money will be reverted from Wilson. It'll just go right over to the Lincoln project.
Okay, so we'll just keep that open till next year. Obviously, guys, we're required to review these on an annual basis and then revert any money. So that one we'll just leave as is and go on till next year. 1151, the new Granger Elementary School. It looks like that's complete and we can revert the remaining funds. I think we're agreed with that.
Yes.
1152, Monroe Intermediate. Does have some funds remaining and that's complete. We can revert those funds.
Yes.
1153, why didn't I say anything about 1153? Interesting. Monroe Intermediate Transportation Shop Fuel Tank Relocation. Okay, that's got some money left in it and that was already reverted.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Okay. Bye.
Make sure I didn't goof here. Oops. All righty, so that one's no funds are remaining. 1154, Toman Ranch.
Yeah. Yep.
So we can revert those funds.
Yes.
2691 Lincoln Middle School, that's still in motion.
On motion. Yep.
Yep, we'll revisit that next year. And then your 2775 Harrison roof replacement.
Has been bid.
Okay, so we'll just
And
go.
Doug, you got your notice of award last Friday, I believe.
Yep.
For that. Okay.
Is that a component project?
That is a component project.
Great, congratulations, that's nice. How much was that? Couple $100,000?
260. Well, yeah, the bid was 162. Well, 162 and some change.
Okay, great.
Are you still going to get a owner's rep on that one, Doug?
You know what? I've been talking with the manufacturer, the Don West. Anyways, I think between us and Sonnefield, we can cover that. He's gonna have extra inspections, and he's gonna have the guy there for the first 2 days of work, and we're all gonna get off to the right start.
Good. That's great.
Okay, thanks for reviewing those with us. Security, Larry.
Okay. Well, this district has been well aware of the security funding and have been deploying their funds. But to go through this, as you know, in 2014, there was $9 million that were allocated for safety and security. And in 2015, FEA did the assessments of the schools, and they created 8 priorities for the security funding for those dollars. And those have been available to deploy that money since 2015. And a school district may use 10% of their major maintenance money for safety and security building needs, which pretty much allows you to do whatever you need to for safety and security with that 10%. Also, there wasn't any money included in that security money for soft costs. It was all just hard cost numbers. So you are allowed to use major maintenance money for design to design a security project. If you're using your component security funding, you can design that with major maintenance money. I'm not sure if you knew that or not. You may move money from one element to another out of the 8 that are that have been funded. You can move money back and forth amongst those. You have to have a request in writing to acknowledge that, or requesting that you will be moving that money, and we have to go through a similar DAO process to move that money. And then you also, in your letter requesting that move, you have to acknowledge that there won't be any back funding for those elements. If you remove the dollars from those, do not spend it on that element and move the money, you won't be getting any more money for that. And the SFD does honor those changes as long as it's in writing. And
okay, and we still have the 52,000 we can spend, right?
yeah, if that's what's remaining in your, if that's what you have unspent, then you can spend it towards any of those elements that you have funded that have been identified for funding. I know you've done a lot with two-way communication, and I'd have to go through and look at all your other security projects, and we can go through that if you want to sometime, and just identify what you have left, okay?
Okay.
And the school facilities was proposed to put another $17.9 million in for security funds, but the legislature was hesitant with that due to the slow deployment of those funds. And like I said, you guys jumped right on that bandwagon and spent money right away. That was good. And it's encouraged to have all the projects appropriated and fully encumbered, so we can request additional money for that, for security funding. Also, if you get with Amber, she can refer to some Homeland Security funding as well that may be available for districts. So anyway, there are other options out there.
Well, we all need to be jumping on security funding. I mean, there was another shooting this morning.
I saw that.
And so, you know, it's important that we're paying attention to that all the time. And I tell you, one of the things I love about what we did at Lincoln was the inclusion of that point of entry for the school, because Lincoln was really, really dangerous, actually, in the way that the office is way down the hall, and when you come in the door, you can go down a set of stairs, and there was really no way to really contain people for review. And so now with that new entry point, that's going to improve that 100-fold. So I'm very pleased about that. That's going to improve that school tremendously for safety.
And just so you know too, that CTA's Amendment 3 is in the process too, so they'll be getting that notice to proceed soon.
Okay.
For that additional work that's for the SRO and your conference and the principal.
Yep. So what, just as, I guess a little curiosity, what is the state thinking about helping us with those kinds of vestibule type remodels to front entries of buildings that clearly are not safe, just because of the way they were designed years and years ago? I mean, we've got Monroe in a good spot now, and of course Lincoln will be in a great spot, but the rest of but the rest of those buildings, they're just not. They just weren't designed with security in mind, of screening and that kind of thing.
Donna, you do, well, I'm looking up your security stuff right now to see what you've got.
I mean, we've done doors and stuff, but I'm talking about the front entries where, you know, the guests come into like a vestibule area, and that's when additional screening and permissions can be given before we open the rest of the building to their entrance. And I just think, in light of everything that's been going on nationally, I'm just wondering, you know, is there going to be a request from the state, you know, through your funding with the legislature, to kind of look at how we do these front entries of buildings? Because, I mean, it's phenomenal the amount of checking we can do at Monroe now that we have that system set up with those two sets of doors.
there is an element called secured vestibule that I was getting into your funding to see if you had that element, but that literally does that, Don. If you have a front entryway that's unsecure, these basically allow you to bring in and build a storefront vestibule just inside, similar to how you do them now. So my aim was frozen up, so I got to reboot it here. Let me get to
Yeah, but with the 52,000, I mean, that's not, you know, a whole lot to try to, I mean, you might be able to maybe work a little bit on one building, but it just seems like that nationally we need to probably start thinking about how to improve schools in those entryways.
Looking down here, Lance, and I don't know if you can see our screen, but I think the legislature also approved that 10% security monies, and you've got still 176,000 that you could get, and those security payment or monies, that 10% major maintenance, doesn't have to qualify for the major maintenance definition. So you can actually add square footage with that money if you want, or something outside of the major maintenance definition as well. So I think that that's part of the I mean, this is how we interpret it. Part of the legislature's action on that 10% was to address even more beyond as the district needs and supplement what they've already done for the 8 elements that they have funded.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Lance, anything else?
No.
Okay. All right, so capacity, I usually have Charlie lead this, but his voice is limited. So Charlie, if you want me to, I can, or would you like to lead this portion?
You can go ahead.
Okay. You see something, just add to it. So obviously we do all of your, and you well know this, the capacity methodology has changed. The commission made that change this last summer. And so, but each of your buildings has a capacity in it. There were no changes for anything that's a secondary, middle school, junior high, or high school. We had a little bit of adjustment on the alternative schools. And I thought that that was a really positive adjustment. I think that it actually lowered capacity, if I recall, Charlie, in those buildings according to the methodology. But the ones that we were tracking, you know, in the past year with you guys, specifically were the elementary schools. As we've looked down through there, we do track those on a district-wide basis. We respect the fact that districts have a choice where their boundaries are. And where students go within their district for the elementary schools. So you guys are at about a 79% as of based on last October's enrollment numbers and looking at your percentage per building.
Yeah, and that's going to change. All that's going to change next year with the reconfiguration. You know, middle school is going to have about 600 kids, 602 or something like that. So that'll change a lot at Lincoln. And then, of course, the 5th grade will be added to all the elementary schools, which now 5th and 6th is just at Monroe. Jackson is closing. So there'll be a lot of changes next year.
So the one I was looking at was your Expedition Academy. That's the one, was that the church you bought?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little bit over capacity. How's that working for you so far?
It's fine because the enrollment fluctuates there. You know, in the spring we tend to lose more kids to jail and other places, but we're fine over there. Even though it looks like it's a little above, it's okay. Just put the capacity as very fluid.
Hey, Troy, I wanted to just add a real quick note. For Lincoln Middle School, we'll get the final capacity numbers when we go through and measure this coming fall. So I wanted to make sure that we noted that's just a temporary fill-in number for now.
Okay, got it. Thank you. And that's a kind of important thing before I finish that other note. A lot of times it's kind of interesting on you guys were approved for X. Well, I don't even know. Did we even do a capacity number on? I can't remember if we did or not for Lincoln Middle.
We did.
We did. And so there oftentimes district is a difference between what the commission approved and what the actual capacity is. And that's simply because of design choices that are made along the way. That's a minimum number the commission wanted you to shoot for. And most likely, I'm sure that at least I've never seen one different. I hope it's not different. Usually the capacity is a little more than what originally was. This is kind of a remodel, so it'll be interesting kind of how that turns out. So you guys are much more aware of what you've done and what kind of spaces you've created. So the Expeditional Academy, I said the capacity above 100%. District mentioned that.
The enrollment fluctuates throughout the year.
And I'll just say it doesn't at this time request
Present a problem, yeah.
Request additional space or something like that. So
yeah, that's fine.
And then I don't want to close that door down the road. You may, who knows, so we'll just kind of monitor that year to year.
Okay.
Okay, but for the legislature, when we do report this, we certainly want to make sure we let them know that we talked to you and we're not just kind of steamrolling over the district or anything, that we work together, and at this point we feel that it's adequate.
Okay.
Your enrollment projections, it's always good to review these on a yearly basis. Obviously you guys have gone down, and that's certainly especially with the challenges, I think, with regard to funding through the block grant. I know you guys have been concerned, and I don't know, I've heard from superintendents, I think it's fair to say that you guys are pleasantly, obviously you guys would love to continue to receive the funding you've had in the past, but it's not as bad as it once was perceived it might end up through the legislative session. Is that a fair statement, Donna?
This year's at least better than it was last year. So, and our enrollment is been kind of flat, decreasing a little, but I think it's flattening out. We'll see what the kindergarten numbers come in, but that really happened with that when Cole went belly up. That's when we started losing kids.
Okay. Yeah, well, hopefully you guys are kind of planed off, and it looks like your average kindergarten class in the last 10 years has been about 215. Last year you were 206. This year 195. But yeah, I'd say for the last 3 years, you guys are pretty close. I mean, obviously every student probably means what, about 15 grand for you, give or take.
Yeah, right now we've only registered 120.
Okay.
So I'll see what happens in April. That's when we do our big kindergarten roundup. But it's looking like it's going to be kind of low.
Okay. And then it's kind of good to look from kindergarten through about 6th grade. Your average class size is 198. If you were to take your 7th through 12, average class size 203. So you do have some reduction there. Your actual survival rates, when and how these work, you probably know this, like your kindergarten in 2014 advances, that was 231, 2015, 221, 229, then 226 in 2nd grade, and then you picked up some students. So each of these classes kind of do a stair step down, and you can kind of follow them through as they move through your 12th to 12th grade. But you guys' survival rate from year to year is really outstanding. Every time, golly, in fact, it's extremely good. We were talking yesterday, we saw one that was actually sublet 1 is pretty solid up there in Pinedale. But Charlie, unless you know otherwise, this may be the best survival rate in the state of Wyoming that I can recall.
Yeah, once the families come here, I mean, Green River School District itself just has a very strong reputation with families of being solid and supportive of kids, and they do stay unless, for some reason, somebody just loses their job and they can't. But, yeah, I mean, typically we can count on that survival rate being pretty close when they graduate, and it really helps with planning because we kind of know how many kids we're going to end up with, and so it's been good.
Wow, I'd say that's just outstanding. Well, good. That says something about the quality of education you're providing for the students.
Right.
Okay. All right. Statewide, as you well know, we try to keep track of that on a statewide basis because we're responsible for making recommendations that are equitable. And so the nice thing, but we think it's nice, is that we still have capacity issues in the state. That means we're not losing all the students because of the energy downturn or something like that. But up there in the Afton area, we do have a couple elementary schools that we're looking at potentially here in the near future, recommending for additions. Rock Springs is continuing to grow in their high school, and so they have that satellite high school that they're looking at, and that's been a really good study. They did a most cost-effective remedy several years ago, and we actually freshened that up, and they wanted a satellite high school, and projections kind of supported it in the past. Those projections today, they certainly have slowed down. They're not at the pace they were at one time, and so it's going to be it's not really a phased project, but a segmented project with regard to a satellite high school, and be able to maybe make some recommendations for a portion of that will support their fire academy. I think they call it Fire Academy lands. And so be able to start building on that building without building the entire building and overbuilding. And I think right now for us, our strategy, and I think just to be responsible with the legislature, is to make, when we see districts growing, to make reasonable requests to address that growth without overbuilding, not knowing what the future of any community at this point is, or most communities. So kind of segmenting it a little bit better. Anyway, Cheyenne, sooner or later, they've got a triad. At the 9-12 level, they're at 98%, so they only have less than 100 seats available. Cheyenne is one of those consistent growth. They slowed down. They're not growing like crazy, but their economic base is not really energy related, so growth is more based on commerce and stuff like that. So, but anyway, they'll eventually here, we're going to have to deal potentially with a fourth, I guess we'd call it a quadrad. And that fourth one would be, they take elementary schools within attendance boundaries that move up through a middle school or a junior high, and then to a specific high school, and they keep those cohorts together within those attendance boundaries so that those students aren't traveling to a brand new high school and they've never been with any of their the other students. So it's kind of an interesting approach. So that'll be interesting coming up in the future. And then Laramie won Albany won in Laramie, their middle school or junior high school there is kind of pushing. But Laramie is one of those interesting communities, as you well know, that it's a college town. There's not a lot of industry or businesses coming in there outside of the school district and the university. And so it's that one's a real slow grower. Jackson has been interesting, and they are experiencing some growth issues, but they've really slowed down. And I know that they had a lot of students from, not a lot, but they had students from Star Valley coming up there and crossing the school district boundary there. But they kind of shut that off, and they've let those students continue on through the grades that were already kind of grandfathered in. but they cut it off because they were at, I can't remember what they were at, Charlie, 130, 140% capacity.
They're around 142%.
Yeah. So they've got that new elementary going in there, and so that'll be a good, I think, will resolve some of those issues. And then obviously Jackson doesn't have a lot of growth potential because it's a lot of national forest and federally owned land. So, and then they're not, obviously, they're not aggressive in developing housing developments. So that's going to, I think that'll probably level off. Anyway, that's just a quick, it doesn't really have an effect on you, but we like to share that district or statewide. Okay, you talked about your reconfiguration. We've listed the academy and Lincoln Middle School. So on major maintenance calculations, allowable square footage, what we tried to do this last year, you have you have about 250,000 square feet that you're not getting funded for with major maintenance, and it's based on ADM, of course, and allowable. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to just acknowledge across the state that that there is a difference between what most districts are getting paid for and what they actually have, and so their major maintenance is getting thinned out. Obviously, the calculation is based on ADM. It's put in that and you've probably seen it, Donna. The formula is an interesting adventure in and of itself. But we do have some good news for you, actually, a little bit later on in this, where we think you're going to end up with more major maintenance. One of the recommendations we had to the select committee actually made it through. We are desirous of bridging that gap between your allowable and your actual in the future, and if we kind of go down that road, and if districts like yourself feel like more major maintenance would be an advantage for you to take care of what you have, then maybe we can have a little bit more team approach on that and team up, and maybe the districts can vocalize that a little bit more. But I know that this last year, probably not the last thing on your mind was major maintenance, but I think you guys, more importantly, are probably looking at the block grant and protecting what you have and making sure that you don't have unnecessary cuts. And I think facilities have been somewhat shadowed by that. Is that a fair statement, Donna?
Yeah, but I just wanted to make you guys aware, we're in the process of developing a lease for Jackson Elementary with BOCES, Region 5 BOCES. Right now they have the Roosevelt building in Rock Springs, but they're probably, well, they are going to move into Jackson. So we'll be bringing that lease in front of both of our boards on April 10th. And so that building will be leased.
So is BOCES one of those approved building?
Is BOCES one of those approved cities?
Yes, BOCES is a qualifying educational program, and that square footage, if your ADM drives it district-wide enough, it will produce or generate major maintenance.
Okay.
Great. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for letting us know that. So when you do get that lease in place and stuff, you probably know that Amber's got a lease form you need to fill out and then send that lease to her. We'll make sure that we list that, and we'll change the status of that.
Okay.
Donna, you said Region 4. Can you explain what that is? Is that similar to like the Region 5 up in Jackson?
It's Region 5.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's that entity. And so they have a program called the Roosevelt program that sit that old Roosevelt building in Rock Springs, but they're vacating that building and they're going to move into Jackson because it's much more updated and it has cameras and things in it that other old building in Rock Springs doesn't. So they'll not have the lease any longer in Sweetwater 1, and then we'll have the lease with them. And
it's just not the same as just your regular BOCES. When I think of BOCES, I think of it, adult education and that type of thing as well.
Oh, no, this is a child, they have CBAR-V, which is
Right.
a full-time program. And the Roosevelt program, kids just attend during the day, and then they're transported back home at night, where at CBAR-V, they live up there. So it's
Right.
great to have an option. So it's a school, and it
Right.
serves K-12.
Okay, and where I'm going is, I think maybe your note there that, Troy, that you have just BOCES on there, I think you ought to explain that it's Region 5 BOCES rather than just something that would be a typical school BOCES with adult education and board of,
Right.
Yeah, I think that deserves. Yeah, I think it deserves further clarification on that.
Okay, and I'll say, I mean, yeah, I was thinking more of typing than I was listening. So, I guess what I'm going to put here is that this may qualify as an educational program.
Yeah.
And we'll go through that process to generate major maintenance funds. If ADM ADM calculation.
So the only thing that's telling you is you're going to be able to use those student numbers. That's what he's telling you. So it's not going to generate major maintenance for the whole building. It is only going to generate major maintenance based on those square footage and those student numbers. But it's better than that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Doug. I think, does that make sense, Donna? Obviously, if your ADM doesn't, you could still have that building, but if your ADM district-wide is less than what that square footage would be, then the rest of the square footage in the district, if your ADM drives less allowable and doesn't cover that square footage, then you still, even though it qualifies to be paid, your ADM wouldn't generate enough money, major maintenance to actually include that square footage.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, okay. And that's something we're trying to bridge the gap, I think. And, there's kind of different philosophies around the state. There obviously asset preservation, and I think we'd all agree that asset preservation is an important part of, if we're going to put square footage, and we have square footage on the ground, district-owned square footage, then we really need to provide enough major maintenance to meet the needs of those facilities and make sure that they are taken care of properly. And then there's the other philosophy on the other end that says, and not to eliminate capital investments, but just acknowledge that probably capital investments at some point have to plane off and level off or decrease, and you got to take care of what you have, not just continue to add. And then, of course, there's always that struggle with educational suitability and what do we do with the educational environment, and if capacity or condition doesn't drive new capital funds, then how are we going to deal with the educational suitability? And I think those are all things that I think the legislature in the future here is going to have to continue to grapple with and see how they want to resolve as they move forward.
Okay.
Charter school, you do not have one. You do have the Expedition Academy, 45 students. That was last October 2nd. I know that you guys reported a little more here. I guess we could just put a note here. What was that percentage?
So I call them.
Expedition 101.96.
Troy, that number there, if it is based on October 2nd, then you have that data at 51, and that should be 51.
Okay.
Yeah, instead of 45.
All right, I will change that then. I'll just say 101.96% capacity. SFD will report to select committee that additional square footage is not required at this time. Based on discussion with district.
Okay.
Okay. All righty. You know, the other reason we do that, and not to say, Donna, that you're not going to be there next year. Not to say that at all, but we do have, it's kind of interesting, and you probably, I've heard, let's see what your perspective is in this. We've heard from most superintendents that give or take about 25% of the superintendents turnover in Wyoming each year. Does that sound about right to you?
Yes.
Okay.
But I've been here a long time.
Well, good. We need some consistency, and we sure appreciate when the superintendents. Our challenge is the reason we put these crazy notes in. You and I both know. We all know these facts, but we never SFD we never know when changeover's coming. So, and then the new administration comes in, or facilities, or business manager. I think the business managers have more longevity than probably most administrative positions by far. But
Troy, we're the same. Troy, we're the same way because we thought you were being so specific because school facilities people rotate so fast.
Well, and let me say that you are absolutely correct, because our administration, I mean, since I started in 2005, facilities management with Laramie too, I mean, this organization has had a new director about every 2 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Even more so than superintendent changeover is you guys.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so this is not to insult your intelligence, but we do have this graphic on life cycle planning, and obviously you guys are, I'm sure, taking good care of your buildings with preventative and routine maintenance. Major maintenance is an important part of that process as buildings age, to help with the continued deferred maintenance as it grows. And then at some point in the history of a building, we have to have capital infusion of some kind of capital investment to either renovate or replace. You guys are probably, I'd say, probably, I mean, you guys haven't asked for a lot of new. You have used money well. You have made the argument that renovation for you guys has been pretty effective with some additions. And so I think you guys have done a great job with capital funding, and hopefully that's going to continue to meet your needs educationally for a few years in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Statewide, this is just page one that represents X number of schools across the state. The higher the FCI number, this is 2016 FCI number, the more deferred maintenance is related to that building. Everything that had a 0.4 above, pretty well, not 100%, but was pretty well represented in this last budget. And in some way, shape, or form, we're acting upon either the planning, study, design, or actual construction in some way, shape, or form. So we just kind of continue to keep this out. Actually, as a state, if you were to probably compare us to other states, facility-wise, I think we have a fantastic inventory with regard to district-owned buildings. So we're excited about that, but we also acknowledge that in order to keep ahead of it, we have to continue to provide you guys with the appropriate money, both in major maintenance and capital funding. And then I know you guys have that routine maintenance that's provided through the block grant in some way, shape, or form. And I know it's a block grant, so you use it according to what your school board wants you to prioritize that with. Looking at your buildings, you again have some really outstanding ones. Your Lincoln Middle School is being worked on. I think that's probably your poor scoring building, and actually not poor scoring at all. It's a 0.3. But you guys have great educational buildings, and we know you have challenges, and we'll continue to work with you to meet those challenges. Your ancillary buildings are in really good shape. So overall, our perspective is your district's looking pretty good for facilities in relation to condition. Any comment there?
No, I mean, we do have a lot of ones and twos still at Lincoln. So I know we're going to need to be interested in putting some component funding in there, because the walls, for one thing, in there scored a 1, and we don't even have enough major maintenance to deal with the expense that's going to be to fix that.
Okay, good. We always like to hear that, and we're glad that you guys have gotten some passed, and in the future we hope that we'll continue. We were really pleased that last year the legislature put 21 million toward component funding, and so that met a lot of needs across the state, obviously, probably including you. And then this year there was approval of the first 16. We'll talk about that in just a second. So that's a blessing. So good. Please continue to use that, and hopefully the legislature will value that and continue to be able to fund it. You guys obviously have to submit your 680 form, which is just a reconciliation of your major maintenance account with expenditures. This just happens to be last year's and what your priorities were. It's only for illustrative purposes. We don't ask you to defend it or anything like that. We just every once in a while we have the governor's office call up, or someone else, a legislator, and say, hey, I want to see such and such facility plan. And what we're trying to do is just in a succinct way, just to give, if they could take 10 minutes and look over your facility plan, they could just see what your priorities were last year and what's kind of going on with the district. This is a numerical breakdown of those numbers, and then a system by system breakdown per building. So it's always great to see you guys using those monies, and hopefully we'll continue to provide adequate amounts. You were just talking about your 1s and 2s. We recognize that, and it sounds like you're still considering, yeah, just like this Truman Elementary School roof coverings, $400,000, that's been completed. But as you guys move forward, please continue to really use that component level project request process, and we're hoping for the best for everybody. Major maintenance balance, you guys, if all things were equal and you got the same payment, I think you're going to end up with a little more potentially this year, and we'll tell you why in just a second. You're probably aware of that. But in July, looking at all your encumbrances and stuff, you should have around a little bit closer to $6 million, and so we recognize using that as your school board determines best. Just out of curiosity, and we've asked this of most districts this year, what is your process of prioritizing major maintenance?
Well, first we look at health and safety, and then the second priority is curriculum. You know, if we need to remodel a space to support the educational environment itself, and then we go into specific student needs, and then we've got another category. But so roofs and things like that always come in first. You know, any broken concrete, things like that, we try to make sure we take care of all that stuff first. And our schools are very aware of that, how we delineate that process. And we also have a school facilities committee, and it includes board members, central office people, and community members, and they help prioritize as well when projects come in. For instance, you know, we need to remodel those the 2 sets of bathrooms over at Monroe that we didn't do in their major remodel, because we need to put the smaller toilets in there for our itty bitties now that we're going to make it a K5. And you know, our community members really wanted to put a limit on how we remodeled that, and so we going to design around that figure that they felt comfortable with. And so we have a lot of oversight and input, and I really believe that it's that healthy conversation to expand with the community as well on why our buildings are in the shape they're in too. I mean, Doug is very passionate about making sure things stay upgraded. He thinks ahead. He forecasts out 4 or 5 years where we're going to need a roof and things like that. So we're ready when it's time for component funding. And you all know that from the history of working with us, that a lot of times when we're ready to pitch a program to you or a design, we've already done a lot of legwork to come in with almost, a ready plan. So we'll continue to do that. I think that's a valuable and thoughtful way to do your priorities. And before anything goes to the board, it's all run through that committee. And again, another check and balance system, so to speak, and another opportunity to get other people's opinions on making sure that they feel comfortable with the way in which we invest money in these buildings, because frankly, they are public buildings, and our board looks at them that way. They like the community to be using the buildings 24/7, frankly, and so there's a lot of pride around the Green River buildings, a lot of pride in remodeling buildings that have been kept in good shape to accommodate changing conditions, and so really we have a pretty comprehensive plan on how we do our business here.
Wow, sounds great. Hey, Lance, district, I think Lance needed to leave at 10 o'clock, and so probably we ought to release him. We just have a little bit left, but Lance, do you need to leave?
Roy, he already left.
Oh, he did. Well,
Yes, he needed to leave. He's gone.
in that case, we release him, right?
Sneak out.
How funny. He did sneak out. We're just going to have to call him up. Thank you, Donna. That was a really good explanation and a very thorough process. So appreciate you letting us know that. And different districts do it different ways. And I think the way you described it is just as good, if not better than most. So thank you. The work orders in AIM, we always have you clean up as a district. If you've reported through the 680 all expenditures on a project, we close it. And these are work in progresses and opens. And so we do thank the district for keeping up the database and just making sure it's up to date. We were talking about component projects. These first 16 here have been approved and signed into legislation by the governor. So we're excited about that. And these districts, it was 10.5 million. Unfortunately for you guys, and it's just the way it is, I suppose, and the 17 through 37 here, you guys had like 1, 2, 3, 4 that were not recommended. Didn't fit within the commission's priorities going through the select committee. So those were not. So it sounds to me like you're going to resubmit those, Doug, and perhaps have additional ones as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wish we could have got down to these, and that would have been awesome. So maybe this next year.
Okay.
And that's all I put here, nothing big. The legislative session, as always, is an adventure. It's interesting to watch the process. We have actually been involved more with the legislature through the entire process than we ever have. And I think it's because we're not shelling out. No, I should say the state's not shelling out hundreds and hundreds of millions. And so it's been interesting to be involved. And I just heard the other day where we're probably going to be more, even though the select committee, we are responsible to get the select committee reports each year. I think that we're going to have some direct interaction with JAC on a regular basis from this point forward, so as to make sure that we're representing how we're prioritizing our recommendations to the commission, and how the commission is making recommendations up to the select committee. And I think I don't know, you've been around a lot longer than I have, Donna, and know the legislative process, but I think it sounds like now that there isn't as much money going through, I think that the legislature is trying to kind of streamline communication and make sure that later on in the legislative process that those either representatives or senators are involved have a knowledge of what's being discussed in a much earlier stage of the game. So
Yeah.
So anyway, it just sounds to me like they're trying to streamline their process of communication in such a way that they don't have a disjointed decision-making process from one committee to the next, but rather everybody's informed to a much greater degree.
Right.
Anyway, these are all House enrolled acts, and I think all of these have been. They have been signed in by the governor. So the major maintenance definition of House enrolled Act 18 included such things as code, site, and those items that qualify for other items that qualify for major maintenance. So, for instance, if you have a code issue where your fire marshal's coming through and he says, "Hey, you know what? This isn't grandfathered in. It is a code issue, and it must be addressed." And they can write a letter and filter it through the district. And so it's really to help districts when occupancy of building can no longer take place or is limited due to a code issue that is not grandfathered in. Then you guys can have a way to deal with those code issues and actually major maintenance pay for it, because some of those systems are non-existent. So that's
right.
one improvement. The 7-year phase-in, I think, Charlie, you know better than me and district, but the 7-year phase-in is no longer in existence. So where you guys would have to phase in over 7 years a percentage of your building until, like, the first year is 0%, and then it goes up second year 10%, and goes and it has a variance up to 100%. Now on day one, you're going to get 100% of your major maintenance.
Yeah, that's great.
So did they broaden the definition?
The definition, it's kind of interesting. Of major maintenance, you mean?
Yeah.
Let me show you that real quick. Let me go to.
I think it includes there.
That's what I was wondering.
Let me show you what did happen in that major maintenance definition. I think signed by the governor. I think it's this one. Charlie's kind of going in and out. He's having a difficult time. He's sick, and so we're keeping him away from us. So code compliance means system improvements and site improvements that are mandated in writing by an authority having jurisdiction. We just talked about that one. So these are now expanded definitions. Site improvements means the repair, replacement, or upgrade of those components or equipment of the school district buildings or facilities that are not system improvements, including the repair, replacement, or upgrade of. Okay, so I think what it says is, well, see, you got to start. It's difficult. So we're going to have to start interpreting this. But anyway, now they're covering sidewalks, parking lots, athletic fields, playground features, outdoor security features, landscaping, drainage systems, and similar components. And then system improvements includes the repair, replacement, or upgrade. See, I think that to me, Doug, I think the key word here now is the word upgrade. Would you agree?
Right. And so now it should include air conditioning and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's one that we're going to have you guys work through those good old project managers and see if it does qualify. So anyway.
Well, I know we had an air conditioning question, and yeah. Dale McComey told me if this bill went through that I would not have to be fussing about air conditioning anymore. We can just have it.
Oh, wonderful. You know, I know that that's been a contention for a long time, and we know that it affects the educational environment dramatically. Anyway,
yes, it does.
Also, it includes structural systems, fire protection systems, indoor security features, electrical, plumbing, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, roofs, windows, information technology systems. That's kind of an interesting one. And then similar components or equipment. So those are pretty well the additions to this. So it looks to me like you guys are going to have some more freedom to be able to address additional things.
Thanks, Troy.
Yep. Okay, I think that's about it. We now have a third division of our agency. So we were the School Facilities Commission way back when, then we became the School Facilities Commission and the School Facilities Department. And then the legislature 2 years ago combined the School Facilities Division with the Construction Management Division. So like for us right now, like in planning and your PMs, will now be in a third division called operations. And the reason is, and you probably know this from a financial point of view and accounting point of view, that we have different colors of money funding the two different entities, the construction management on one side and the school facilities on the other. And so they've made this third operations division so that people like us, the planners and the PMs, can go back and forth between the two other divisions, the construction management and school facilities, without having to worry about accounting issues with regard to how we're getting paid and how we're spending our money.
Well, that's good.
Yep, frees us up to do what they called us to do. And then House Enrolled Act 62 obviously is the bill that pushed through all the funding, and that was approved by the governor as well. Supplemental budget, about done, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. Supplemental budget, I think this is our 49th, 47th meeting, so we're getting a little fluent here. The supplemental budget considerations, in order to, several years ago they changed, and this is right in the bill itself, that we can ask for supplemental funds if it's an emergency or unanticipated need, refinement or modification of a present project. Does the district perceive an emergency or unanticipated need that it wants to request in the supplemental budget?
Okay.
So did you hear me? I'm sorry. So do you guys have a supplemental budget request that qualifies?
No.
No, not at this time.
Okay. We would assume so, but we always want to ask. Last portion then, unique issues, ideas, or concerns. What have we not covered that the district would like to talk about before closing the meeting?
Only that I really need some component money.
And why is that?
Just so we can get our ones and twos taken care of.
Can I say that major maintenance funds are insufficient to remedy?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Anything else?
Nope, I think that'll do it.
Okay, Charlie, Amber, anything?
I don't have anything, Troy.
Alrighty. Hey, we sure appreciate you guys. One of these days, we'd love to get over there and just walk through your buildings again with you and get on site.
Well,
that's important.
and Troy, we're going to be sending out the invitations this week, but we're going to have a ribbon cutting for that Lincoln 6th grade wing on April 10th at 5:30.
Okay.
So do we print that out and sign it, send it to them, or do they send it to you?
Do I need to print this out and sign it, or y'all gonna send it to me, or what are we gonna do?
I will send it to you on DocuSign. It'll make it so
Okay.
easier. We don't have to do any photocopying or scanning. Simple DocuSign.
Okay, I'll be looking for it then.
Okay, thank you.
And you guys be looking for your invitation. We'd love to have you join us. It's turned into a very nice space.
So you call that the Lincoln Middle School grand opening, or?
Yeah, the 6th grade, we're calling it a 6th grade academy over in that wing.
Yep.
And what would be nice if you can come out is you can kind of go over and see that the other part that's the ones and see how terrible it is. I mean, it's really bad. It's too bad we've got this new wing and we can't finish up the rest of it. But hopefully, you know, we'll continue to try to articulate our need in that component funding and see if we can get a little help there. Because we really, I think, have been a model district for using the money wisely and maintaining it, and, you know, so it's money well invested when you put it here in Green River for sure.
You bet. Give me that date one more time. April what?
April 10th, it's Tuesday at 5:30.
Gotcha.
And like I said, my secretary will be sending out some formal invitations, but since you're on the phone, I wanted to let you know.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right.
Well, we'll close down the meeting then. Thanks a lot and enjoy your day. We'll look forward to seeing you again.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, bye.